Hello, everyone. Dr. Karen here. And when you see this red background, even though most of you know red is my favorite color, but you also know something's getting ready to happen. And I am not by myself. And so, of course, I have an awesome woman, sister leader here that we're going to find out a lot about. And so I am excited. And so sit back, get your tea, coffee, or your Coke, or Diet Coke, or whatever it is, so that we can learn all about Quinn Conyers. Welcome to the Sister Leaders Podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here and exchange some energy with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we can use some energy because where we are right now is midday. So this is round about the time where you need an influx of something going on. But why don't you tell the Sister Leaders community who you are, who you serve, and what do you serve them with before we get into the questions?
Yeah, so my name is Quinn Conyers, and I transform average events into epic experiences as a professional conference MC and keynote speaker. And I serve two different audiences. I serve event planners and producers who are using events to activate their crowds, and I support them in making sure that their events are on time, their speakers and sponsors are warmly introduced, but overall, I serve as their event GPS. So if you're having an event, it is my job, my duty, and my responsibility to be your right foot, right, in the process to make sure that your attendees are having an amazing experience. And then when I'm taking the stage as a speaker, I'm normally speaking life into business owners and teaching them how to use their voice and, more importantly, luxury language as a strategy to intentionally grow their business. So that is a little bit about who I am and the two audiences that I am super excited and proud to serve on a daily basis.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And look, she's already jumped into one of my questions. And so let's go ahead and get started because y'all know I get deep with my questions. And so, Quinn, my first question for you is what's the difference between an event that is well run and one that is strategically emceed?
Ooh, I love that question. So, well run checks off boxes, logistics, registration, decor, color. We got keynote speakers. I feel like well run events, it really is a checkbox of events. Like, do we have a DJ? Check. Do we have speakers? Check. Did we meet our food and beverage minimums? Check. Do we have a venue? Check. It's more of a logistical, well run, I can check off a box. When it comes to something that's well run and managed with an MC, we're going more into attendee experiences. So beyond does the decor look good and does the food taste good? You're asking yourself, how do I want my attendees to feel? What do I want them to do? Do I want them to feel excited during this part of the program, or do I want them to get in touch, you know what I mean, with the little girl or little boy that's inside of them? So that's the difference. And the MC is the person who orchestrates that process, make sure that energy is high, but also can tone it down if it's a more serious thing that happens. Also, when you have a great MC by your side, they have extra set of eyes they've seen from doing previous events. So, for example, I remember hosting an event and I was going through the run of show with my client, and I'm like, okay, this speaker is going here, this speaker is going there. And I said, okay, this person's talking about what? I said, I'm gonna need you to order 100 boxes of tissues. They were like, what are you talking about? I was like, they're gonna cry. Everybody in the audience, based on this topic, based on this introduction, they're going to be in tears. And like clockwork, right around that time, there was a bunch of tears in the audience because I called it. So, when you look at well crafted, created events, your MC can see through the agenda in a very different way that might be overlooked or dismissed. But more importantly, a great MC really is partnering with you to increase sponsor visibility, ensure that your speakers are, seen, heard, valued, and appreciated, but overall protecting your entire attendee experience. It's not checkbox, it's more emotional intelligence that is acquired with an MC than simply did we meet the minimums versus did we accomplish the feeling that we want attendees to walk away with.
I love that. I love that. And I came across something that me as an event producer that I really want to know about. And it is why do you believe conferences are at risk of being forgotten or replaced today?
I think that conferences are at risk of being forgotten or replaced if they are doing things that worked well for them in 2000, in 2005, in 2018. I feel like the conferences that are mostly at risk are the ones that fail to evolve. And right now, more than ever, I think that, conferences that was heavy with great keynote speakers and a lot of content used to be the way to go. But studies are showing that people actually don't want content shoved down their throat every minute by minute. They would like a chance to kind of process what the speaker had said, and they want different formats, right? So I think that if you are stuck with doing conferences and events the way that you've always done them, and you haven't, number one, included diverse voices on your stage, as well as diverse formats, whether it's keynote speakers, panel discussions, fireside chats, even something simple as having a meditation room at your conference, right, is different. So
Mhm.
I think that if you are stuck with what has worked before and you are ignoring or overlooking the attendee or sponsorship experience, your event can decrease attendees, but more importantly, the format become extinct and people will go on to something else because there's so many people doing events. So I think it's part of like a conference or event producer's responsibility is to evolve, be open-minded, and be willing to try new things that might not have been what you've always done. People are looking for more experiential events where they can touch and taste and feel and smell very aspects of your event, and that causes intentionality. And a lot of times, event producers really get bogged down with like trying to get it done, and they overlook how can this be an intentionally curated experience versus your average event.
Oh, I love that. You're speaking my language, Quinn. You're speaking my language. So I have here in my notes here, it says the hidden cost of a weak MC. So that's kind of the path that I'm going down. So can you share a real example where a lack of strong MCing negatively impacted an event?
Okay, Dr. Karen, can I be honest with you? I'm gonna say hot, honest, open, and transparent, right? So I've seen it, and I know other people have seen it, and I call this person boring board member Bob, right? And if your name is Bob, I apologize, but we all know who the Bob is, and Bob could be somebody else on your team. But it's when conference organizers or conference producers try to cut corners. They will invest in AV, they'll invest in a photographer, a videographer, they'll hire floral and decor, and then for some odd reason, they'll hire AV and then they'll outsource the MC role to someone who's either been voluntold or someone who wants to do it, but it's really not their ministry. It's not their gift. And we can tell. And I mean, I just remember being at events and the MC was boring, let's just say that. The jokes were dry. The jokes, I mean, the guy was quoting literally quotes from JFK. It was going over people's head. Like, you know who our current president is? Not this president. At the time, it was another president. But it just was. It wasn't landing. You could tell that he was an older gentleman, and just not up to date. The transitions were bad. Also too, we recognize and we realize that you could tell that he was just given the script. He was fumbling names, failing at introductions. It just was a bad thing. So I have seen people who have overlooked and dismissed this role, but then I also give kudos because there are a lot of event planners and producers who are realizing that this is not something that you outsource, and if you want to have an overall experience, that this particular role deserves just as much as importance as the caterer, as the photographer, as the videographer, as the AV. So I do think that event planners are starting to turn the corner and realizing the value that a professional MC can bring. But when it's done and it's done horribly, everybody feels it. I remember working with another person and they were telling me about, this wasn't my story, but a key C-suite executive lost their job because they were hosting a facilitated meeting and the credibility was shot. The person wasn't prepared. They butchered names, and to make matters worse, it was a multi-day event, so they were intoxicated the night before, not realizing that they had to go on stage. So people don't realize how much time and effort and energy goes into this role, and you have to be on for 8 hours because I've been at times where literally, let's say, Dr. Karen, you were my keynote speaker, and for whatever reason, you had 60 minutes and you only took 30. whose responsibility is it to fill in for 30 minutes? It's Quinn's job, right? I can't say, well, Dr. Karen, what happened? You got 30 more minutes. Come back on up here and finish your speech. It doesn't work like that. And I've seen people literally say, oh my gosh, well, she finished early. I'm not sure what to do now. Or I've heard somebody say, oh my gosh, the tech isn't working. Hello, can we get the tech? Like, you got to be quick on your feet. If it
Hmm.
is chaotic on the back end, the job and the responsibility of the MC is to make it seem flawless. I will put out fires with a smile. That is my job. That is my goal, to protect the experience, because things do happen. If I got to stand my little 5 foot self on a table and says, technically, we're having, some things are going on. We're going to take a quick little break before we come back. That's the things that you have to do. And someone that it's not their skill set, they're not quick on their feet, they don't do well under pressure, it shows, but more importantly, it impacts the credibility, and it also impacts the overall um event. And that can look very bad on the producer, but more importantly, it can have a negative experience for the attendee, which is going to cause them not to come back, which is money, and also not to refer other people, which is even more money. And number two, not to rave about your event, because after your event, people should be talking about it on social media for days and days. And if they're not doing that, either the event or the MC has missed the mark.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So you mentioned multi-day conference. So my next question has to do with that. So where do energy breakdowns typically happen with multi-day conferences?
Gaps is what I call them, but usually during breaks and after people eat. So energy has to be established early on. But I have seen, if there is a break in the schedule or after lunch, or I see the energy gaps happen if people are having so much fun in exhibit hall that they forget to come back to the main stage. So you have to carefully craft it. But energy also drops, to be honest with you, which is very sad to say, is with speakers. I know a lot of speakers who are what I call content rich, but they're execution poor. So they know their stuff, they're experts in their field, they're thought leaders, they're absolutely brilliant in their industry. However, they might not be speakers, right? They might accomplish something amazing. So again, if a speaker comes on and they are speaking and delivering at a 3, my job is to come in at an 8 or a 9. You know what I mean? Get the energy back up, and
Hmm.
then we can go to someone else. So sometimes it's breaks and gaps, but sometimes the speaker doesn't have the energy and enthusiasm. And that's okay, because if you have the right MC, they can balance it off. Now, my job isn't to shock the nervous system of the attendees. I can't, if the speaker is at a 2, I can't come in at a 10, but I can match or bring up the energy of the room within transitions. And I'm very mindful of that, to see, okay, where is this speaker kind of coming in energy engagement wise, and how can I be a complement to that? And sometimes I gotta work hard, because this person is great at what they do. They got the title, they got all of that, and someone has asked them to speak, but they're horrible communicators, you know? And that's okay. I'm used to that. So that's why I have to come in with my energy to kind of offset that, so people don't start looking through their phones or bailing early, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is a snooze fest. And if you have 3 or 4 speakers that don't bring energy, and I don't bring energy, then it's just going to be a situation where people are going to decide, is this a professional development opportunity that I want to continue to invest in, or do I want to find something that's a little bit more interactive and engaging?
Love it, love it. So let's talk about tying the role of the MC with the strategic goals of the event. And so you talk about aligning main stage moments with strategic goals. Walk us through how you do that.
So part of my job is, I always let people know, if you're looking for someone to simply introduce speakers and sponsors, I'm probably not the right MC. Like, you want to be up in my business, I want to be all up in your business, right? Like, what is the mission? How do you want these people to feel? And then I'll say, based on your schedule, let's make sure that we have some intentional moments to do that. Like, one of the things people have said to me, I want our event to be more interactive and more engaging. And I'm like, where? Where in this agenda can we do that? You have everything so minute by minute, they're not going to be able to breathe. They're going to be choking on content. So instead of having a 60-minute slot, why can't we do a 40-minute slot and do 20 minutes of an audience activation activity, right? So it's about learning what the goals are, looking at the agenda and seeing if the agenda and the run of the show match your vision. And you'd be surprised how many times it doesn't. And I always let people know a quality event doesn't just require more content. Is there stretch breaks? Can we potentially add in a challenge? I remember one event, they wanted people to move. They did not want people just to stay in still. So they were having this, you could check it on your app that whoever had the most steps got a prize, right? So there's different things that we can do if you're like, okay, Quinn, we want to do this, but it really is about me listening to your heart, listening to your vision, and then I love to make recommendations that work well. I remember I was hosting an event in Dallas, Texas for one of my clients, and he was like, I really want people to know, and it was a speaker event. I love speaker events. Those are like my favorite. Anything speaker development, um, how to become a speaker, how all of that, those are like my favorites to do. And he was like, I just want people to know that most people, their ultimate goal as a speaker is they want to make 100 grand. They want to make they want to make six figures, doing this. And I want my audience to know that the way Dr. Karen might make six figures speaking could be different than how Quinn makes six figures speaking. But all of those opportunities are warmly welcome. He was like, I want to be able to really drive that point home that there's multiple ways to make money in this business. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, Connor, I got you. His name is Connor. I said, okay, Connor, I got you. So what I did was I ended up buying 100 grand candy bars. And I had about 6 or 7 people come to the stage. And I said, all right, Dr. Karen, it was like maybe 5 people behind you. I said, I'm holding in my hand, you know, three 100 grand bars here. I have 600 grand in my hand, and you got to get to me. But I want you to be creative on how you get to me. So maybe you dance to me. Another person behind you might have did a cartwheel. Another person, they did the moonwalk. I mean, all these people were doing all these creative ways to get to me. And at the end, I visually showed there are multiple ways to make money speaking. You can get to this final destination of 100 grand or 200 grand in a way that works for you. You don't have to be a carbon copy of somebody else. He was like, brilliant. I would have had you say it, but I didn't know how you could illustrate it. And that's some of the things that I do pertaining to your question is I hear your heart. And if you give me some time, and sometimes it's only 5 minutes I need or 10 minutes, I can create something that drives that point home in a way that's fun, engaging, and interactive. And I think that's part of my superpower as an MC is hearing what you're doing and making sure that we have intentional activation moments within your conference that sometimes turns the attention from the stage back to the audience that we can pull them into the experience versus them being just note takers and listeners. I want them to be active participants, not passive audience members.
Yes, I love that. And I believe for any event producer, that is music to their ears. And so let's talk about the different events that you may do. So, how do you tailor your approach differently for associations versus corporate events versus women's leadership conferences, per se?
So association events, normally my ultimate goal is to make sure that their members are having a good time and they come back day after day and year after year. So a lot of it is the same approach is listening to whoever I'm working with, whoever is the producer. But again, as an association, I know what matters to them is members, right? So we're going to talk about the member experience and how we can elevate that. So one of the things that I do, which is one of my favorite things to do with associations, is members at the mic. I love this. And it's something that I've done with several organizations and associations is where again, most conferences are so content rich. And I'm like, can we shine a light on the members? Give me 4 or 5 members who have seen huge impact. They've gotten great results being a member of your organization. And we give them 60 seconds at the mic. So this person will take the mic for 60 seconds in front of everybody. They'll give their best membership experience. And we can go through 4 or 5 of them within 5 minutes. And it's fun, it's fast paced, and people like it. So my thing is, that's an exercise or audience activation that I do that quickly highlights members without giving them a 20 or 30 or 40 or 60-minute slot. It's quick, it's fast, and it's fun. So when it comes to corporate conferences, it depends because corporations sometimes want to be a little stuffy, So it depends on what they want. Sometimes they're like, you know what, Quinn, we don't necessarily need some of the activation, but we need for you to be able to introduce us. Keep us on time is huge, making sure our speakers don't go over. And then we need you to moderate our panels and do our fireside chat with our C level or our CEO of our company, right? So then that's my job to ask inquisitive questions, ask questions that make the person think, ask questions that humanize the leader. Because a lot of times people see them as the CEO of this company. And my job is to level the playing field and say, yes, they are the CEO of this company or of this corporation, but they're also human. I'm going to ask a question about your kids. What's your favorite ice cream? What do you do when you're not being a CEO? Like, I humanize the person when it comes to corporate, because sometimes with corporate, it can be a little stuffy and they see like, that's them, that's my boss, and I'm just this little employee. And that's the way that I, kind of separated from associations to corporations. And then the last is like award celebration. So when I do awards or I host galas and things like that, that's just a good time. So I'm able to add in some personality, but the way I prep for that is really make sure that the room understands the assignment of this is celebratory, and I will acknowledge and share why we are honoring, why we are doing this, but I extra love up on all the honorees. So there's no panel moderation for that. It's just making sure that if Dr. Karen got an award, I want her to feel like she just won an Oscar. That's how I want her to feel. So there's certain things that I say, there's certain things that I do, and even with that, I always say for award celebration, please have walk on music. Like, I don't care if it's Girl on Fire from Alicia. I don't care if it's I'm Every Woman by. So it's like little things that I do. Whereas at a corporate, we might not have walk on music. We might not even have a DJ. I've seen it all. So it just depends on what is the event and how can I make sure that my vibe can match the vision of the event producer. And that's kind of how I work.
Love it, love it, love it. So, what systems or frameworks do you use to maintain consistency across multi-day events?
So for one is there's an MC script. I'm not winging this. So once the run of show is complete, we go in and we do actually a script. That way I'm not forgetting anything. I am making sure that any key players, sponsors, visibility, anything that you want to be announced is there. So I make sure that we are intentional about, that. Like, I need a script. Like, I people they just think that I'm like I need something to be able to introduce and things like that. Also too, I need pronunciations of names. I don't want to butcher anybody's name. I want to honor the stage. So I do that. Other consistency is I do walkthroughs. I do not come into a room or a stage where it's cold. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. You know what I mean? The day before, because sometimes you go to venues and they're having a previous event, but my job is to get there at least the day before. I like to look around. You'd be surprised that I've been at events where it's just like I'm doing an accessibility check in my brain. Like, okay, is everybody able-bodied? You know what I mean? To come up. There's been times where somebody has a boot and they're in a wheelchair. Like, well, they didn't have that boot when we booked them. I was like, yeah, but now there's a stage and there's a riser. We need to figure out what we're going to do because this person has to still be able to speak. How can we accommodate them? So those are just some systems that I have between the MC script, as well as doing a walkthrough before the venue, making sure that I have the right pronunciation of the names. So that way it just feels cohesive. And you can tell if somebody is prepared versus if somebody is winging it. And I just believe that the first face that people see, which is normally me as an MC, I need to be polished, prepared, and ready to serve. And I can't do that just relying on talent alone. It's not just talent. I know that I'm great at what I do, but because I'm great at what I do, it comes with preparation and honestly years of experience. I have been on stages of 4,000 and stages of 40, and I still want a script. I still want to walk through. I still want to make sure I got these names correctly.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about, since you're dealing with humans and we can be kind of quirky at times, let's talk about the psychology of dealing with humans. And so, what role does psychology play in how you manage audience attention and connection?
Well, for me as an MC, when it comes to psychologically, what I try to do is I try to connect and appeal to the three types of learners: the audio, the visual, and the kinesthetic. Most of the time, when people are producing conferences, they're really only focused on the audio or maybe the visual. And when I say audio, they want to make sure that it's great content. And when I say visual, they want to make sure that the decor looks good and people have PowerPoints, right? That's kind of what they're thinking. They're not necessarily even thinking about the kinesthetic learner. And that's the person who is hands-on. That's the person who needs to touch something. That's somebody who needs an exercise to really kind of like understand the full capacity. So that's why somebody could hear me talk about how you can make 100 grand, but if they actually did the exercise, they understand it even more. So there's a couple things that go into psychology. First and foremost, color, 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 color. Most speakers and sponsors who hit the stage fall into three colors. They either are wearing black, gray, or navy. Okay. After a while, even though the messages are different to the audience, it looks the same, right? Another person up there with a navy suit, another person up there with a black shirt on and some black pants. So with me, one of the things that I do is whatever is the brand colors of the conference, whatever is the brightest, I highlight that, right? So let's take your conference, for example. I know you said it's black, it's red, it's white, and it has the hints of gold. I'm probably going to be more or less gold and red because it's more of a pop color, right? So psychologically, what happens is the brain is activated when they see color. If they keep seeing three speakers who all don't have navy, all the information, all the content starts to run together. So from a psychological, I infuse color psychology to make sure that people are in place. And sometimes too, if there are darker colors, I'll just wear whatever I want. I'll wear some sparkle, I'll wear some sequins because I know number one, that the audience needs a brain break. But number two, I want to make sure somebody like you, Dr. Karen, can find me quickly. There goes Quinn with that bright yellow suit on. So if you're looking out for a couple of hundred and for whatever reasons you need to get to me quickly and I'm not answering your text, fast enough, which I have a watch that gets my text messages. I have a phone just in case. But she got that pink suit on. She got that yellow suit. She has on orange. And 10 times out of 10, no other speaker is wearing orange on stage but me. So that is a way for me to capture and keep the audience's attention, but it's not just a fashion move, it's psychological. I know that if you got 3 days or 2 days of conference and everybody got on a black suit, you don't remember who was on day one and who was on day three, but you will remember how Quinn gave you a boost of energy through her energy, but also through her color and her wardrobe. So I'm very intentional about that.
I love that. I love that. And I think you touched on this a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask the question in case you want to add something to it. So, how do you create moments that attendees talk about long after the event ends?
Well, part of that is the intentional moments. Like I said, if you go on my LinkedIn right now, someone literally posted about the exercise I did with the paydays, right? And with the 100 grand candy bars. Also, so those moments are curated. They're not by accident, right? So I'm like, hey, can we have one or two audience activation activities? Number two, it is my energy. My energy is contagious. And I know this is a part of my superpower. I remember someone saying, you're better than like 3 cups of coffee. So it's how I make them feel. Like I am not like hiding in the back. I'm not hiding in the back. Like, okay, Dr. Karen, is it time for me to go on? Like, I'm there. If you're having a welcome reception, I'm there at that welcome reception. Do you need me to say hi to people? I'm gonna say hi to people. I'm walking around, I'm shaking hands, I'm kissing babies. So by the time I get on that stage, I got about 500 friends. It's not a cold stage to me. So part of it is, oh my gosh, like people are always like, I didn't know you were the MC. You just was talking to us. We were having a conversation. So part of that is, how can I make your attendees feel warm and welcome? And that is me interacting with them on and off the main stage. And it's a feeling, right? One of the other things that I do too is, which is one of my favorite things to do, is rolling reporter. I will capture some testimonials. People like to share their opinion and their insight, and they want to talk about that afterwards. But normally it is me serving that audience both on and off the main stage and being intentional about some of the exercise and activities that I do. But more importantly is it is eating with them. It is, going off the stage and having how you liking this conference so far? Is this good? Like I'm asking questions and I'll get up there like, oh my gosh, welcome back to the break, everyone. I had a chance to talk to Dr. Karen and she said this was one of her favorite conferences. Anybody else, this is their favorite conference as well so far? So it's just me learning the attendees and bringing their experience with me on the stage. So we feel like fast friends, not forced friends. That's my job.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about sponsor integration. So what creative ways can MCs elevate sponsor ROI without disrupting the attendee experience?
So I love that question. And a lot of times, okay. Forgive me, conference producers and event producers are sometimes very lazy. I will say this. You got this sponsor giving you 5, 10, 20, $30,000 and you want to give them 5 minutes to speak and their logo on a banner, right? That's lazy to me. My thing is, how can we activate them before? So one of the things that I would suggest is, if possible, let's use some of the tools that we have. Could we do a LinkedIn Live or Instagram Live with a sponsor and say, I'm here with sponsor so and so, and they're going to be a sponsor for the Sister Leaders, conference. Can you tell us a little bit about what people can expect if they stop by your booth? Like they love that because now they have some, oh, what if, especially if they already know their booth number. Like I'm gonna be, my name is so and so. I'm gonna be at booth number 267. And if people come to me, they can expect to learn how to build a great website. We'll have examples of a website, and everybody who decides to work with us that day, they'll get 20% off their website. So if you can highlight them in an interview or a clip before the actual event, now they're gonna say, oh yeah, I remember her. They're at booth 267, and they said if I sign up today for a website, I can get 20% off. So giving them an incentive. Also, too, one of my favorite things to do with sponsors is some type of gamification. Right. So you could do like fact or fiction, right? So you have a sponsor and I might bring somebody up from the audience. And let's say the sponsor speaks for like 5 or 10 minutes. And I will look at this person's speech, or I'll even have a conversation, with the sponsor. And I'll say, okay, we got Dr. Karen here. And Dr. Karen, we're going to test your knowledge. How much do you know about X, Y, and Z sponsor based on what they just said? So fact or fiction, you can um you can create a speaker reel even if you only have one clip. Is that fact or is that fiction? And then the person would say what they wanted to do. But I would take some of the intellectual property from the sponsor and make it into some type of game that could do learning reinforcement, and have the sponsor be a part of that. Also, too, if I'm doing a rolling reporter, I can get some on-site testimonial of, hey, we're here at Sister Leaders Conference and I'm here with X, Y, and Z, who happens to be a sponsor and exhibitor. What are people learning when they come by your booth? So it's really about intentionality. My thing is, anything is great. Anything is good beyond giving their logo across the screen and giving them 5 minutes. We can figure out a way to be more intentional and properly thank them and give them some visibility.
Absolutely. I love it. So let's talk about when things happen against the script, when things happen
Mhm.
against the run of the show. So a little bit of crisis management. So every event has something that goes wrong that's not part of the script. What's one of the most challenging moments you've had to manage on stage?
Two things come to mind. The one thing that came to mind was I was doing an event. I was in Atlanta. I had a confidence monitor. For those of you who don't know what a confidence monitor is, when you see an MC up there and they're giving all this information, there's usually a big TV screen with all the notes. You not see that on the screen. It's usually like a slide of it says Quinn Conyers event host. Well, as I was introducing the speaker and reading my notes from the confidence monitor, it just glitched. And I could see my introduction, but there was a big black box with white writing with all this error. And I'm like, oh my God. And I can literally see AB like doing this. And I'm just like, okay. Luckily, I had a speaking greet. So the person I was introducing, I had already met her. Her bio was cut a little bit short, but I was at least able to say, based on her topic, and still give her a warm introduction. Part of being a great MC is you got to be able to be ad lib and quick on your feet. You can't say, okay, excuse me, AV, I can't see my notes. You can't cause attention to the crisis. So she was just like, girl, you did all of that introduction without having I said yes, because I knew what your topic was. So for the most part, if you're speaking at a conference and your conference and your topic is how to be resilient during change, I'll just say, and she's going to teach you about how to be resilient during change, and she's going to talk to you about some of her personal stories about how she was resistant and what resilience looks like. And I mean, like, it was off the cuff, Dr. Karen. I don't know, it might have been the Lord Jesus Christ who spoke through me. You know what I mean? Because but I'm used to things going left and right, and technology fails, mics go out, it just happens. So luckily, we were able to have that speaking greet, which I pushed for the client. I was like, let me just meet them. Let me just make sure this is the right bio, and I study my speakers too, like who's
Mhm.
coming so I can give them a proper introduction and things like that. So I was prepared. That was the first thing. The second thing that happened during a crisis, I had a woman go into labor on me. Yep, right in the audience. She started having contractions. She sure did. And it's funny because normally when I work with a client, I ask for who is my point person. That's usually not the host. So, for example, when we work together, Dr. Karen, I'm sure there's going to be probably somebody who you're going to say, Quinn, you work with that person. And my thing is, we do not alarm Dr. Karen unless we can't figure it out ourselves. We would tell her about all the fires that we put out. But in this moment, she needs to be on. You know what I mean? She needs to be able to, support these attendees. And if we can't figure it out, that's when we go to her. But we're not going to her saying that somebody asked for a vegetarian meal and they got chicken on their plate. I'm gonna need you to go back there and get that. I went back there before and be like, can I get some chicken? But we're not going to her and say, oh my God, your attendee is upset because they got chicken. They wanted vegetarian. We're not doing that. But anyway, so the event planner was like, Quinn, we have someone who's having a medical emergency. I don't want to tell the event host because I know she's going to freak out. And I'm like, you're exactly right. She does not do well under pressure. I said, okay, here's what we need to do. And she was freaking out too. She said, because we both were like, I said, here's what I need you to do. Call the ambulance, call 911. Do not have everybody come through the door. I am going to start the program. I want you to have one person from the ambulance come and see if she's able to be moved. But if you come in here and there's 4 or 5 people rushing in with a stretcher, that's going to cause too much attention. But if everybody is facing me and she is positioned in the back, then you could have one person and they can assess her and figure out, do we need to kind of just pause the program or can we get her out without a ruckus? And that's exactly what we did. So they had the whole crew back there, but one person came up and he was in uniform, but it wasn't as alarming as if you see somebody 4 or 5 ambulance and EMTs
Hmm.
with a stretcher, like, whoa, what's going on? I said, but I will start first. Ask her, is she okay? Can I get 5 minutes? Let me start the program, have the EMT come tap her and see where she is. And that's how we were able to work through it. And afterwards, on our debrief call, she was like, I would have never known. Like, and thank you for not telling me because I probably would have had a baby with her. It was just like a false alarm, but she still wasn't feeling well. She was pregnant and we were able to still get her some care. But I mean, there ain't no handbook for what do you do if somebody in the conference gets pregnant and goes into labor. Lord, geez, like, I don't know. I just be doing stuff what makes sense in my brain. But my job is honestly to be the calm during the chaotic. We both everybody can't be on 10. So if something happens, my job is to make sure I'm still protecting the experience while caring for whoever needs care.
I love that. Just a little bit more, Quinn, because we want to know all about you and your girl got questions. So I just got a few more.
You
So if
good?
you
I'm
could bear
enjoying the
with me,
conversation.
because I am really enjoying this conversation. Absolutely. But let's talk about you and who you've worked with. And so you've worked with brands like Nike and
Mhm.
PayPal. And what have those experiences taught you about excellence in events?
You know what is funny? Nike and PayPal taught me how to navigate more corporate events. But I think what it also taught me is that the same Quinn that I bring to the National Society of Black Engineers or the same Quinn that I bring to sister leaders is the same Quinn that I can bring to Nike and PayPal. So sometimes I say, okay, like I don't wear heels. I wear sneakers on stage. Y'all okay with that? These are agriculture. These are engineers. Are you okay? Like my energy is high. I'm not going to be in a black suit. Are you okay with that? So I think what corporate taught me was sorry, give me one second. They are so loud. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but my kids are
Mm-mm.
here. Okay, perfect. So what it also taught me was like my authentic self is welcomed, valued, and appreciated on all cross. If somebody is reaching out to me 10 times out of 10, matter of fact, 11 times out of 10, they've already done their homework. So I'm thinking to myself, you sure you want me to like, you're exactly what we want. We are the people in all the navy suits. We are the people in all the black suits. We need your
Mhm.
color. We need your energy. So I think doing events for organizations like Nike and I'm a sneaker girl because they always want to see my sneakers it just taught me like whoever you're called to be, whoever God has designed you to be, you don't have to necessarily code switch to fit in. The right clients, the right customers will find you and appreciate what it is that you bring to the stage. So for me, I don't think those organizations taught me necessarily about excellence in events. I think it really reinforced that I can be who I am as an MC across diverse stages. Now, when it comes to excellence, whew, I'm going to be 100% real with you. A lot of Black or African American events have taught me excellence. The way they show up, the way they curate, the way they dress, it's just impeccable. Like I go to some events, I'm like, did you look in the mirror before you got dressed? Did you look? Did you brush your
Mhm.
teeth? Did you wash your face? It looks like you were voluntold to come here. It looks like my company paid for this, so let me go ahead to this conference. But then when I do a lot of like, you know, culturally curated events, they come like I'm ready. I'm ready to learn. I got my Sunday's best on. The food was better be good. The DJ, like it's just a different experience of event excellence. And that's what I love. So I love about myself that I can be diverse in all the different ones. But Black excellence, hands down, some of the best events that I've done is from people who were conscious about creating culturally curated conferences.
I love that. I love that. What was your breakthrough moment when you realized emceeing could be more strategic and not just performative?
COVID. COVID changed me and my speaking business. Before COVID, I was a typical speaker. I did offer emceeing. However, people weren't booking it. It was just like, and maybe I didn't know how to talk about the value of it, but it was just like, people really weren't checking for it. When COVID happened, I had shout out to Felicia Hatcher from Black Ambition. She was having an event and she was like, we're having this event. We've been in person for years. Now we got to go virtual. And she was just like, I just love your energy. And I just feel like your energy can transition from just a keynote speaker over to an MC. And that's how it ended up starting. So I started MCing these virtual events. And what I quickly realized is, oh, no, this is not performative. This is super strategic. And I began to what I call be a comment. I used to a comment commander. So I would say, if you're having a good time so far, type me in the comments. So I learned that there's certain engagement strategies that you have to incorporate, and that's what makes it strategic. And I always say to people, again, if you want someone to introduce speakers and sponsors, I'm not the one. I'm looking for the dead spots. Where can I lose you? And where can we do an activation activity? Where is it too much content? And I can say, listen, I know that you want to give this person 60 minutes, but can we give 40? Because you have three back-to-back 60-minute presentations. After 90 minutes, people are tuning out. You need a break, right? So it's how I look at the lens. And also, too, I am taking in the attendee experience. You cannot have five back-to-back 60-minute presentations. You are going to lose people. They're going to check out. They're going to go to the bathroom. They're going to start scrolling, So people want, that's how I look at it. It's everything is strategic. And I'm looking at, okay, what worked well at this conference? Ooh, I've noticed that 20 to 40-minute presentation is the sweet spot. So that's where the strategy comes in. So I'll say something. Now, if you take my advice, yes or no. But if I'm looking at your agenda or you're running a show and I see that from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. there are 60-minute back-to-back slots with no break, I'm gonna say something. I will. And then, I mean, that's just a strategy. If you want
Hmm.
me just to read a script, I'm not the one. I'm going to say, I'm going to read this script. I'm going to add my personality, but here's where I think we can make this experience even better.
And I wonder if what you just said answers the question that I'm getting ready to ask now. It seems like it might be part of it, which is what's your non-negotiable when it comes to producing a high impact event?
My non-negotiable is pre-event prep. If I can't do a walkthrough, if I can't be a part of your meetings, I'm not your MC. Because how can I go in there cold and not be an extension of your team? So if you're like, oh no, we just need you to come on the day of and just read this script, I'm like, oh yeah, you don't want me. Because I'm gonna be like, oh my goodness, I could if they would have let me be a part of this, I would have told them that 90-minute keynotes are not the thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So my non-negotiable is if you don't want a partner in the process, I'm not your girl. Like I want to see you do well, but more importantly, if you're having a conference, it's for a reason. Maybe it's lead generation, maybe you're making an offer, and how the program is scheduled is going to determine that. If you have a great offer, but people are bored to death, then it's not going to happen. Or if they're overwhelmed with content. So for me, it really is about will this person allow me to be a partner in the planning process? Or do they just want to give me a script to read? If you want to give me to a script to read, find somebody else to do it. That's not me. Because I want to see your event succeed. And 10 times out of 10 people who are hiring me, they're having events, either multiple events in a year, or they're having events year after year. And if you want people to come back, you want me, because I know how to make people come back. So that's how I'm looking at it.
I love it. So we've reached the closing part of the. I feel a little depression coming on. That's I believe that's what that feeling is. But I haven't gotten as deep as I wanted to get. Didn't get to all my questions, but that is good because we can't show them all. Quinn, y'all Google her, research her, and find out what you can to go with this interview. And then of course you'll have opportunity to see more of her later. But my closing question is, what does the future of conferences look like over the next 3 to 5 years?
First and foremost, I don't think that AI can take my job. AI doesn't have emotional intelligence. AI cannot connect. AI cannot walk around and say, you know what, you look good. Thank you so much for coming to this conference. So, the future, I think a lot of times people are trying to integrate AI, which I think is good, but I think the future will not take my job as an MC. I do think that it is going to move away from traditional events and meetings, and people are going to actually do more experiences where they're hands on. I've been at conferences where they've had a puppy lounge, just puppies for people to kind of pet. I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. So I think that there's going to be more interaction. I think the future of conference and events are going to be actually shorter keynotes. I think that it's going to be a diverse of programming as well, meaning you might get a keynote, a fireside chat, a panel discussion. Um, I also think that there's going to be more of an influx of events because people understand the power of community and coming together around a common cause. So I do think that the amount of more events are going to pop up that are similar. So right now, there might be, I'm just making it up, 60 conferences in the leadership space. Years to come, it could be 600. And then people are going to have, I think, a little bit of decision fatigue. Why would I go to this leadership conference versus that leadership conference? So people are going to have to get creative on attendee attraction. It's not going to be, oh, they've always come. Yeah, they've always come, but then now there's more competition because there's so many more events that are focusing in on your target client. So I think that event planners and producers are going to have to get creative on how they capture and keep loyal attendees to keep coming to their event after year. And lastly, I think that more planners are going to understand the power of an MC. They're going to realize that their board member is not the right person to host. And they're going to understand if I want this to be an experience, I need someone who is willing to lead an experience. So I'm excited. I feel like my ultimate goal is not to be booked and busy. As an MC, I want to be peaceful and paid. And when I say peaceful and paid, that is working with individuals who already understand the power of an MC so we can work together to make sure that their event is not average, but it's amazing.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And this has been such education 101 for me. I've learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot. I'm glad that some of the main things weren't surprising to me since I do host events, because I would have been concerned about myself. But why don't you tell the Sister Leaders community where they can find you, how they can stay connected, all of that stuff, and don't be humble.
Okay. Well, the best way to connect with me is LinkedIn. I know that if you're connecting with me on LinkedIn, that you are serious, you want to connect. So if there is something that I said that you like or that you love and you want to continue the conversation, you want to get to know me before we meet up in October, definitely LinkedIn, Quinn Conyers on all social media platforms. But you will get a bigger, better, faster response from me on LinkedIn because I feel like people are serious on LinkedIn. They want to do business, they want to grow. So again, LinkedIn is the best way to connect and reach out to me.
Awesome, awesome. And I will be remiss and I'll get my hand slapped if I don't mention it, but it is that time of the year again where we are readying ourselves for our annual conference. Of course, you know how we do. We have a lot of stuff that leads up to October, but I have to mention it. And so I am excited about mentioning it. Our annual conference, which we're back at the casino, the Rivers Casino, October 2nd and 3rd. We will still have our global virtual kickoff on the 1st. So we're still going to have that as well. And look, this year, our theme is purpose led, profit focused. And you know how I am about purpose. I believe that if you chase every dollar, there may be an integrity issue down the line for you. But if you follow your purpose, that the profits will eventually come. And so you're going to hear a lot about purpose led, profit focused. And of course, the website is still the same, sisterleadersconference.com. I'm Dr. Karen. This is Quinn. You'll see both of us in October, but you'll see us leading up to October. So this won't be the last time you see us. And so we are excited. We are excited about this year and what is to come. And I thank you. I thank you until the next episode of the Sister Leaders Podcast. Bye.